Lone gunman caused panic on Sunday evening at the Fairgreen Shopping Centre in Carlow. As you know, shots were fired in the air by the gunman, who's been identified as 22-year-old Evan Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald died at the scene by a self-inflicted gunshot. No one else was harmed. Sarah, first of all, just describe what we know of how this whole thing unfolded.
So it was around 6:15 p.m. on Sunday evening that Evan Fitzgerald fired a number of shots in the air while walking around the Fairgreen Shopping Centre in Carlow town. Shoppers fled from the shopping centre and 999 calls to Carty were made. Gardaí and armed detectives arrived to the scene fairly quickly, who then identified themselves to Fitzgerald. A further shot was discharged from him, fatally wounding himself. Garda headquarters said no shots were discharged by any of the Gardaí present. A young girl suffered minor injuries while fleeing the shopping centre and received medical treatment. And the Army's bomb squad was called in and later declared the area safe.
So basically the girl who was injured had nothing to do with Fitzgerald except that she was fleeing at the time and came to some minor harm.
Exactly. I understand she was fleeing from the shopping centre and injured her leg at the time.
Now, tell me about the bomb squad. Why were they brought in?
Yeah, so the Army bomb squad was called in and they declared the area safe, while at a private residence, investigators recovered 2 rounds of ammunition and a barrel containing a mix of alcohol and chemicals. So on Monday evening, a Garda statement said Fitzgerald's body had been removed from the scene and taken to a mortuary for a post-mortem by the state pathologist. The body had been left there in situ overnight, pending an examination by Defence Forces experts from Collins's barracks.
So they thought that perhaps there might be a device on Evan Fitzgerald's body, but there was none, and the scene was declared safe and his body could be removed. Now tell me about Evan Fitzgerald himself. He was due in court actually today.
Yeah, I think it's tomorrow, perhaps it was an Ace District Court, but he was facing a total of 13 firearms and explosive charges. He obviously posed a danger due to his obsession with guns, as Gardaí said, but he was also regarded as quite vulnerable. He was a steelyard worker from Kilskin in County Wicklow, and he was described as having this fascination with firearms. He had been on bail for over a year as he awaited trial on charges relating to possessing 2 guns, ammunition for a wide range of firearms, and explosive powders. So the 2 guns were seized along with 2 types of ammunition back in March 2024 in County Kildare, resulting in Fitzgerald being charged. He also faced 9 other charges, including 7 related to possessing ammunition and 2 of possessing powders that could be used to make explosives. So at Fitzgerald's first appearance before the courts last March, Detective Gavin Curran of the Drugs and Organised Crime Bureau said it had been investigating firearms trafficking, and as part of that inquiry it performed a controlled stop in Strafford, County Kildare, and this resulted in the 2 guns and ammunition being seized.
Now, he was due to be served the book of evidence at his court appearance tomorrow, so that might have revealed something of the provenance of the weapons that he secured, because in this jurisdiction, it's not easy to get weapons, bar, the farmyard shotgun.
Yeah, exactly. I think the allegation that probably would have been heard was that the firearms were purchased online on the dark net for around €2,700 by Fitzgerald using an encrypted email account. And previously the court was told he had made full admissions. He was due before an Ace District Court tomorrow to have that book of evidence served on him in the case, and he hadn't yet entered a plea in relation to the charges.
Now, the questions that are raised by all of this is that the Gardaí opposed bail, but the court gave him bail, and the wisdom of that decision will no doubt be questioned.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen a bit of reaction to this over the last day or so. Sinn Féin's Justice spokesman Matt Carty saying it was deeply concerning that the gunman involved was on bail for very serious firearms charges. He said there needed to be a wider review of the enforcement and operation of our bail laws. He spoke about receiving a parliamentary question response back in March that revealed over 40,000 crimes committed last year were committed by those on bail, and said this was shocking. A spokesperson for the Justice Minister, Jim O'Callaghan, said that he had recently announced that Lorcan Staines Senior Counsel is to assess current bail laws and make any recommendations he believes are appropriate, taking into account the requirements of constitutional justice. I imagine the issue will probably come up today at Leaders' Questions when the Dáil resumes, or in questions with the Taoiseach.
Now, the question of the way his description was announced very quickly, it reminded me of what happened in Liverpool last week after the traffic incident where a man ploughed into the fans celebrating Liverpool's win. They announced that he was an Irishman, white Irishman. So this is, it would appear, to try and stop the social media storm that sometimes accompanies events like this.
Exactly. So his ethnicity and his nationality were publicly shared by the Gardaí on Sunday after some far-right social media accounts claimed the incident was carried out by a foreign national. There were some far-right social media users also describing the incident as a mass shooting with multiple victims wounded, which obviously wasn't the case. And I know as well, Fine Gael TD Michael Carty, who sits on the Oireachtas Media Committee, has called for social media firms, to be quicker in taking down this sort of misinformation when it appears on their platforms, because obviously it's creating, it's spreading fear in communities.
Well, the only way to deal with that is to turn them into publishers, not platforms, and then they have to be as circumspect as we would have to be, or you and the Irish Times would have to be. They can't just let the stuff go unchallenged, willy-nilly. Finally, the question of this man, Evan Fitzgerald's vulnerability. I mean, obviously, if he was identified as a vulnerable person, there's also a duty of care on the part of maybe the Gardaí and the courts to ensure his own safety from himself, perhaps.
Yeah, as I was saying, Gardaí said he was regarded as vulnerable, but he obviously did pose a danger due to this obsession with guns. The court heard a number of months ago that he had this fascination with firearms. So, I suppose this might come in part of subsequent investigations now as to that balancing act in terms of trying to monitor this kind of vulnerable person.
Yeah. And it should be pointed out that he didn't fire his gun, his weapon, at anybody. I mean, he discharged it up towards the ceiling. That doesn't mean that it couldn't have done harm, because when you've got a live firearm, anything can happen. But he wasn't deliberately targeting people, it would appear.
No, it doesn't. And he was, from what it seems to be, he was just firing shots in the air and then obviously fired the shot towards himself. But as you said, in these kind of things, you never know what might happen. And we obviously had that young girl who was fleeing the scene and had that minor injury, but you just don't know with these kind of incidents.